It was supposed to be just another ordinary evening, a casual gathering at our close friend's house, something we had done countless times before. My wife, Laura, and I had been married for nearly 5 years, and while our relationship wasn't perfect, I believe it was stable. We had our disagreements like any couple, but nothing ever seemed insurmountable. As we parked outside our friend's house, I glanced at her, and she gave me a brief smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe she was just tired. The house was alive with the warm hum of conversation and laughter. Laura, as always, slid effortlessly into the social scene, joining the other women in the kitchen to help with the finishing touches. I gravitated toward the living room, where the guys were discussing the latest sports news. It felt normal, familiar, yet beneath the surface, there was an unexplainable tension. Laura's laughter from the kitchen rang out occasionally, but every time our eyes met, there was something in her gaze, an edge I couldn't decipher. As the evening progressed, the group naturally mixed. Laura and I ended up standing near each other as conversations shifted. Megan, one of our close friends, turned to me with her usual curiosity and asked about a work project I'd been deeply involved in. I welcomed the chance to talk about it, launching into an explanation about its challenges and progress. I didn't get far. Laura, who had been sipping her wine quietly beside me, interrupted, her tone sharp and dripping with sarcasm. "Do you ever get tired of talking about work, Ethan? It's always the same thing, over and over." Honestly, it's boring. The room fell silent, the lively atmosphere evaporating in an instant. All eyes turned to me, then to her. My heart thudded painfully in my chest, the words hanging in the air like a slap. I turned to her, trying to gauge what had just happened. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. She smirked, shaking her head dismissively. "I just mean maybe it's time to talk about something more interesting. Or maybe let someone else have the floor for a change." The humiliation was instant and overwhelming. I tried to smile, to laugh it off, but it felt forced, brittle. "Well, I didn't realize I was so repetitive," I said lightly, though my voice betrayed the sting I felt. No one else said a word. The tension was unbearable. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to collect myself. Staring at my reflection, I felt a mix of emotions: embarrassment, anger, confusion. Laura had always been my biggest supporter, my partner in everything. What had changed? Why had she chosen to tear me down in front of our friends? When I returned to the living room, Laura was perched on the couch, laughing animatedly with Megan as if nothing had happened. The warmth in the room had returned for everyone but me. I felt like a ghost, unseen and unheard. Every time I tried to join the conversation, Laura would cut me off or redirect the topic, her tone laced with a subtle dismissiveness that only I seemed to notice. By the time we left, I was emotionally drained. The car ride home was silent, the air heavy with unspoken words. She acted as though nothing unusual had happened, flipping through her phone and humming softly to herself. I wanted to confront her, to ask why she had humiliated me, but I couldn't find the words. The next day, I tried to push the incident aside. Perhaps she was just in a bad mood. Maybe I had misread her tone, her intentions. I told myself not to dwell on it. But later that morning, as I was going through my email, something unexpected caught my eye. An email from an unknown sender with the subject line, "For your eyes only, an important update," piqued my curiosity. At first, I thought it was spam, but something compelled me to open it. As I read the first line, my stomach dropped. "We've been hired to gather information about your wife's recent activities." Attached to the email were several photos. My hands trembled as I clicked on the first one. It showed Laura walking hand in hand with a man I didn't recognize. The second photo was taken at night, capturing the two of them entering a hotel together. My breath caught in my throat as I scrolled through more images, each one more damning than the last. There was no mistaking the intimacy between them. The final photo showed Laura and this man at a dimly lit bar, their heads close together, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The tenderness in her expression was undeniable. My mind reeled. This wasn't just a casual acquaintance or a professional relationship. She was having an affair. The realization hit me like a freight train. Memories of the previous night flooded back with new clarity. Her dismissive comments, the subtle jabs, the way she had been distant yet overly animated with our friends. It all made sense now. She wasn't just lashing out. She was deflecting, shifting focus away from her own guilt. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, torn between anger and heartbreak. By evening, I knew I couldn't keep it bottled up any longer. I waited until she was settled on the couch before confronting her. "Laura," I said, my voice heavy with emotion, "we need to talk." She looked up, surprised by my tone. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I pulled out my phone and handed it to her, the photos open on the screen. Her reaction was instant. Her face paled, and her hands began to shake. "What is this?" she whispered. "You tell me," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained anger. "Who is he?" For a moment, she was silent, her eyes darting between the screen and me. Then she began to stammer. "It's not what it looks like. I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been sneaking around behind my back. That you've been lying to me for months." Tears welled in her eyes as she tried to form a coherent response. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice breaking. "It was a mistake." "How long, Laura?" I demanded, my voice rising. "How long has this been going on?" She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "A few months," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The weight of her confession crushed me. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with everything, had betrayed me in the most profound way. I felt a hollowness settle in my chest, an emptiness I couldn't fathom. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," I said finally, my voice trembling. "I don't think I can forgive this." She began to cry, pleading with me to give her another chance, to let her explain, but her words felt hollow. The damage was done. I stood and walked away, unable to look at her any longer. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, I questioned everything: our marriage, our love, my own judgment. I didn't know what the future held, or if I could ever trust again. But one thing was certain: I would never allow myself to be made to feel small or invisible again. From that moment on, I vowed to reclaim my self-worth, no matter how long it took. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Beyond the Surface.